So hi Kirsty, nice to see
Hello.
you.
Nice to see you
too. We've known each other for a good few years now, haven't we? Just, you know, family kid connections, and it's been quite a long time.
It has, yeah. It's quite weird being interviewed by you, really.
I know. It's
different
fun.
Capacity.
Yeah. So this chat is by way of a kind of bit like the Meet the Maker chat, but the first thing I wanted to ask you today was, were you a makey child? Because you know, sometimes people kind of knew right from the get-go what their thing was, and sometimes not at all. So were you always like really annoying Derek and Sue with your glue sticks as well?
I don't know about making. I definitely used to love drawing and yeah, art generally, encouraged by my granny. I think she was a bit of an artist herself. So yeah,
was she?
Yeah, she used to paint. She made me start oil painting classes. I was rubbish, but she went as well.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah. I didn't know that. So it wasn't that you weren't sort of like making sculptures or models or anything from, like,
no, not at all.
You know, none of that. So
no.
what then was your, when did you actually, so educationally then, what was your path to being, thinking of yourself, right, that's the route I'm going down, that sort of artistic route? What did you actually, where did you start?
Well, so after school, after A levels, I did an art foundation course, which for anyone who doesn't know is a year. I did it locally, where you try all different disciplines and then with the view to, you know, specialize in something. So I did that for a year in Torquay, and then did a degree in illustration in Cambridge. And while I was there, I kind of knew that illustration wasn't really for me. I absolutely loved the course, you know, best years of my life really. But I think in those days, it's probably very different now, but you had to really live in London, I think, and you would have had to take your portfolio around to all the places. And I was really quite shy, and I just knew that that wasn't going to be for me.
Yeah.
So after I finished the course, which was scarily 94, I didn't really do anything. You know, I had a series of pretty crummy jobs, and then started a family, moved to Cornwall, and it kind of happened by accident, really, the whole making thing and going back to it.
It's a really good example, actually. Well, first of all, the Art Foundation is interesting, because we were talking about this the other day, weren't we, about how important Art Foundation is. What did you find from doing Art Foundation? Was there something that you were particularly drawn to when you went on to do illustration? But what about Art Foundation did you enjoy so much?
I think primarily it was doing what I loved all day long. You know, I didn't have to do subjects that I wasn't interested in anymore, and plus I was still living at home, so I could, you know, it was just ace.
Yeah, it's like best of both worlds.
Long, and then going home and having my dinner still cooked for me and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, lots to be said for that.
And it's quite interesting because we did ceramics and jewelry and printmaking and everything, 3D, which I was absolutely terrible at.
No.
Yeah, it's weird how things have turned out, because you know, in those days maybe I just wasn't interested enough in it. I don't know, but I was really bad.
Also, it wasn't like you were doing modelling there and had a sort of natural affinity with it at that point.
Not
that didn't happen.
No, unfortunately. I'd love to say I, you know.
Yeah, it was always going to be your life's dream.
Exactly.
No. So the Art Foundation, for anyone that's not aware, the Art Foundation in the UK is that opportunity between when you finish at 18, your A levels or whatever you've done, and then go on to do Art Foundation. And we were saying the other day, it's quite interesting now for any kids or anyone here who's got teenagers of that kind of age, that Art Foundation has become a bit, not so many people are doing it, are they? It's something I know when I started teaching at Falmouth, which is about 12 years ago now, most of our students came from Art Foundation, and now hardly any of them do. And I think it's a real shame, because you can tell the students that do it, it's really enriching, isn't it, in the way that you experience all sorts of different mediums.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a money thing. Financial.
Yeah. I'm sure it is. And it's a shame, because you can always tell students that have done it. So I would really, I mean, from my point of view as a teacher, your point of view as a maker, I think it's a great thing. You can always tell the students that have done it, because they seem to be more just more rounded and more able to look at things perhaps in a more lateral way. I don't know, perhaps just because they've done more stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So you studied at Cambridge, did illustration. Did you ever do anything with illustration, or was that it was just the uni experience and then that was?
Yeah, no, I didn't do anything with it.
But do you think...
the thing is, I don't regret it at all, and it has, it has helped me. I think my work definitely has a illustrative quality.
Well, I was just about to say, do you think that the way that you learnt to see things as an illustrator helped to inform the way that you, because it does have that sort of quite illustrative, the way that you create your scenes and things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I never know really what to call them.
Well, sure, I can't hear if you're talking.
Oh, can you put yourself on mute, please? Thanks.
I never know what to call my work. It's not sculpture. So I think a 3D illustration is quite a good way of describing it, really.
Yeah, because it's storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always think of that of the, it's just a moment in a life, particularly with the houses and it's just like, it is like a scene that you've just captured for a moment, and there's the whole story of it going on.
And because there's no people in it, that's kind of left up to your imagination. Yeah.
So you've never been tempted to kind of populate it with?
I wouldn't be any good anyway, but no, I kind of prefer them without.
Yeah. So how did it actually happen then? So you get to Cornwall and you've got your boys, and so at what point did you start actually making? How did that come about?
I've all throughout, when I wasn't for as long as I can remember, I've always made presents for people, and I made a card for my brother-in-law Matt, who it was a boat made out of a slither of driftwood with a mast and a flag. It was really, really simple, and he framed it, and I thought, well, maybe I'll try and make some to sell, and I took them to some galleries, and that's how it all started, really. I did that for a couple of years.
No, I didn't realise. So he was the first recipient of a Kirsty
Elson
original.
Was. You better still have it.
I think I've seen it. I think I can confirm.
And then as time went on, I began to make more three-dimensional work, boats to start with, and then one day I found a piece of wood on the beach, which was, well, it was a block with a sort of slanty roof shape, and I went home and put a bit of slate on it and secured it with a couple of nails, which also served as chimneys, and that's really where it all started, I suppose. That's where it took off. I think I found my thing.
And that kind of process then, so it was just because obviously you're rooted in the Cornish landscape, so was that what inspired you? Was that always really important? Was that kind of what grew you to that sort of thing, just the sea and the beach?
Yeah. And I don't know whether it was a subconscious thing that I was influenced by Cornwall. I don't know whether, you know.
But you're kind of a seaside girl anyway, aren't you? Because you live by the coast, or in that like for most of your life. And so do you think it's just that the sea's always been there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I grew up in Paynton and I spent, you know, all my time at the seaside. We had a beach hut and that was, you know, massive part of my childhood. So it all goes towards it, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what, have you ever felt drawn to other landscapes? Are you ever, I suppose it's the stuff that you use lends itself to, because of the way that you collect it, but have you ever been tempted to try any other kind of landscapes, or would it just not work?
I've done the odd one. I think, you know, moorland pieces, sometimes you find bits with sort of orangey colours, and it really depends on the materials I find.
Yeah.
So I never say never.
Yeah. So talk us through your process. How do you actually, because I know you were saying one of the questions you often get asked is do you go looking looking for specific things, or how does that actually work? What's your process from beach to you know, final, here it is for sale?
I just go out with an open mind and collect anything that's vaguely interesting. Sometimes I don't know what I'm going to do with it, and sometimes I know straight away, oh, you know, that will make an excellent harbour wall or something. And I never look for anything specific because I would never find it. And I think it's weird because sometimes I go down and I'm looking for plastic, just, you know, beach cleaning or whatever, and it's something to do with your brain, but you can't look for more than one thing at a time. So if I was looking for plastic, I would miss the wood, and vice versa. So if I was looking for something specific, I think I would miss loads of other stuff. Does that make sense? You
wouldn't see any of the other things. So do you just literally go to the beach, big plastic bag, and yeah? And how often do you go? Do you kind of go, do you get to a point where you look at your stock and go, oh, I'm a bit low, I need to go and do a big forage, or do you just quite regularly go?
It's kind of a waste of time going in the summer because you don't really find anything. I mean, if I'm at the beach, then obviously I will look. I can't help myself, but it's not a good season for finding stuff. After a storm is best. So, you know, I might go down 2 or 3 days on the trot if we've had high tides and bad weather and there's a lot down there, because I can't carry too much at once. But even if I've got a fairly good stash, I still want to go down because I'm worried that I'm going to miss something.
Yeah, you never know. I was just going to say, are you really annoying to go for a beach walk with?
Oh yeah, because I can't switch off.
You can't. Yeah, because you're always looking at something and always carrying some.
Yeah, and people try and help me if I'm with someone. They say, "Is this any good?"
Oh, no.
And I'm like, "Yeah," and then drop it, a little way down because I don't want to offend them.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was just thinking that I've never been for a beach walk with you, but I just thought, God, you talking, then you look round and you're kind of like 200 yards behind with a plank or something.
Yeah. You should.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I promise not to suggest anything though. So do you just go in, what have you got do you just basically, I mean, presumably there are beaches that you know, I mean, so my brother's in Cornwall and lives near Kingsand Corsand, and I know that's notorious for things washing up, isn't it, along that bit of south coast. So do you just go to all sorts of different places?
I tend, if I'm looking for wood, then I tend to stick to the same.
Well,
my
you know,
regular
it's just
it's gonna be.
But you do have unusual donations as well, don't you? Don't you have people that just rock up and say, oh, you know, they found like a bag of old nails or some, was it piano, what was it once, not piano keys, was it piano keys?
Yeah, piano keys. I've got some really lovely friends who, you know, they'll just message me and say, I've left some stuff on your doorstep, or, you know, they bring a big sack of really heavy stuff, and it's so lovely of them. It might be, you know, pieces that I wouldn't normally pick up, but that's quite good in a way, because it makes you think outside the box and make something that you perhaps wouldn't have thought.
Well, is that more recent? You started with housing. I was just thinking about some of the things that you've done with more sort of anthropomorphic stuff, so like animals and those things. Did that come about as a result of, say, somebody turning up with an old hoe and you going, oh, what can I do? Or you know, a rake or something, and you thinking, oh, what can I do with that?
Yeah, I don't know if it was somebody giving me pieces like that, but we've got a really brilliant little shop in Liskeard where I live, on the cattle market, and it's Bob's Toolbox, and he sells all sorts of, it's an Aladdin's cave in there. It's just brilliant, and I just go in and I don't know what half of it is, and I'll think, oh, that looks interesting. That looks like a, you know, goat's horns or something. And so yeah, I do occasionally pay for my materials. It's not all stuff that I find.
But it is that vision, isn't it? That's so times when you put stuff up and it might be like a really bad tempered goat or something, and they're so as soon as you see it you go, oh god, of course, but I would never have thought of that. So is that something that has developed over time, or are you more likely to see that now than before? Are you always looking at something and going, oh, that could be a whatever?
Yeah, and I think the more you do it, the more your brain thinks that way as well. I get messages from people saying, oh, you know, you've made me see things differently, which is nice.
Yeah, it is really nice, because I think, and in a way you're because how many years have you been doing this now? When was that first?
It's probably about 15-16 years.
Yeah, so you're kind of, I mean, people, of course people had made things from found objects before, but you must be one of the most well-known people making driftwood art and art from found objects, predating the idea of talking about ocean plastics and reusing materials. And so you were kind of well ahead of the curve on that, really, aren't you?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
So you get you go to the beach and then you get back. So what happens then? Do you work every day? What's the shape of your day? Are you quite disciplined?
I am quite disciplined. I swim first thing in the morning, and I get back and have my breakfast and do admin and stuff, and then I get started fairly early, and I work Monday to Friday most of the time, but you know, when the kids were small and they had assemblies, then you know, I could be flexible. It was great to, you know, just work around them. So yeah, I'm pretty full time really now that they don't need me anymore.
Well, I was going to say, how was that? Because working from home with the family, I mean, I suppose in some ways it's great because it's really flexible at that time in life when the kids are small and they do need you. But how was that starting out? Did you find that was it just seem like a natural thing to do?
The working from home thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no way that I could work anywhere else, I don't suppose. And you know, for ages it was working at the kitchen table and having to clear away all the time, which loads of people do, and they know what a pain it is.
Yeah.
I'm lucky now that I've got a studio. I can shut the door and forget about
well, that's what I was going to ask you about as well, because we were just talking before this started about so you can, this is my office, you can see, with my shelves, and so all through lockdown I was fascinated by the Twitter account that's, if anyone is on Twitter and wants to check it out, it's called Bookcase Credibility, and it was for everyone that was doing Zoom interviews or meetings. I don't know who the person behind Bookcase Credibility is, but they would offer like a commentary on they would take a screenshot of people's bookcases and then offer a little commentary. It's very funny. And I think it's that inherent nosiness about what people have got on their bookshelves. And I presume that makers are similar in the respect of what's your studio like and what's your storage solutions. So what's your studio? So you've got a separate studio now. What's your studio like?
An absolute tip. You would be horrified.
Oh, Kirsty Elson, I don't believe that. I can't believe that.
Well, it is really, I'm disgusted myself.
No.
I've got a space in the garage, which is like with all the saws and the power tools, and that's really dusty and far too small. Got planning permission, hopefully, to extend that. So fingers crossed for next year. And then I've got an upstairs room here in the house, which I do all the painting and the, you know, less messy stuff.
Oh, okay. So it's like a two-stage operation.
Yeah, and there's stuff everywhere. I'm really not, I suppose, a typical artist, not very tidy at all.
That's shock revelation of the day. Kirsty Elson's really messy. I don't believe it. So you've got that, but you've got that designated space now, because yeah, that must have been really difficult. Have you found working on your own, because that of course is the other thing, that unless you work in a sort of a collective studio space, most makers do, it is quite a solitary experience, and I know for a lot of people that's fine because they really like it. And but how do you find, has that ever been times where you just think, oh God, wish there was just someone else than my own head to think about?
I think it kind of suits me most of the time. It can be isolating, but that's why social media is so good, because you can put ideas out there and you get feedback, and you know, it's company as well at the end of the day. In lockdown, when I had Steve and the boys at home, that was a big adjustment for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
From going from nobody in the house to 4 of us, it's quite hard.
Yeah. I certainly find though, because we've both got 2 boys, haven't we? And I sometimes find that I'll have gone all day where I suddenly think, God, I haven't seen another adult human. And teenage boys don't count because they're monosyllabic, and you just get someone asking where the food is, and that's about it. So yeah, so it's interesting that social media is a space for that. How do you manage, because you have got a massive fan base on Facebook in particular, haven't you? And how do you manage your social media? Is that part of your admin? Do you maintain it quite frequently?
Yeah, I do try to. I suppose even, you know, after dinner in the evenings, I sit down and I'm still answering or replying to comments and just trying to keep on top of it. Really, it is a bit of a full-time job sometimes.
Yeah, that in itself is a lot to maintain, because even just replying to comments on a post is it takes a long time, or if people are asking questions, and it's quite a load in itself to maintain, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when it comes to selling then, because the other thing that you said you get asked a lot is the obviously, because you are just one person, that means you have only one pair of hands and you can only produce what you can produce. And so people ask you about why not kind of employ more people, or how about that?
I can't see it work. I couldn't see it working because it's kind of it's my baby, and I would have to, you know, somebody. I just couldn't hand over the reins to anybody else, because I would just be, you know, looking over their shoulder all the time to make sure they were doing it in the way that I wanted it done. So, you know, it's time consuming, if not more. So
yeah.
It's only ever going to be me, I think. I'd quite like somebody to, you know, do my packaging and take it to the post office, but as for making, it's never going to happen.
That's not going to happen. How frequently do you, because you sell, how does your, I know lots of people know, but how does it work? So you reach the point where you've got enough pieces. How do you kind of go about all of that selling business?
Well, I try and sort of set a date once a month, and then I save it all up and I put it all online at the same time, and it generally goes pretty quickly, so then I have to start all over again. I'm not sure whether that is the best way to do it or not, but I don't know how else to do it. You know, I
suppose it's not like other retail spaces where you've got, because everything is so you know, each piece is completely unique. It's not like you've got a shop front in the same way, or even a virtual shop front where you can have product pictures, and it's never too.
No, I can't recreate the same thing twice. So
no.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's nice, of course. That's what makes them special, isn't it? What about, because there have been other projects you've done as well, that how did things like when you did the puppet, well, talk us through that, because that was really interesting. And how did that come about?
I just had an email out of the blue from the puppet theatre in Ljubljana, Slovenia, asking if I would be the artistic director. I think that's what they called it. And I didn't even know what that was. And I didn't really have any knowledge on puppet theatre, which is a really big thing over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what they do over there is incredible. It's really innovative and exciting. So I just went over to meet them, and they told me what they, you know, had their vision, and it was quite nerve-wracking because I'd never even been abroad by myself before, and I was completely out of my comfort zone, but it was a really, really good experience. And the studios in the theatre itself, all the, you know, making that goes on, it was kind of like being at art school again. All the, you know, materials to hand, and it was buzzing. It was wonderful.
Amazing. So were you helping with the actual, what did you do whilst you were there? Because were you there for a couple of weeks?
I went over a few times.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I stayed for a week. That was the longest I was there in one go. I was basically designing the puppets and some of the set, but I'm not clever, you know, I can't make things move. You know, I had no idea about the mechanical side of things, so they've obviously got their own guys there, very clever people. So I would sort of say I would make the static puppets and then they would make them move, and yeah, it was really exciting.
Do you think there might be, are you in touch with them? Do you think there might be more that you can do sort of post lockdown, or?
I don't know. I haven't heard from them for a while. There was talk that they might bring the show over here, which would have been good, but yeah, it's all kind of slowed down a little bit with COVID and everything. So have to see. Would be nice.
So has there ever been any other kind of artist or makers that have inspired you, or is it always come from landscape first, or was there anyone that ever really, who was your sort of artistic hero?
Well, my favourite painter is Alfred Wallace, which I think you can probably tell. And then, you know, his work is quite primitive, and obviously boats and houses in Cornwall. So, and then I don't know if you know Victor Stuart Graham. I hope that got that right. Victor Stuart Graham sadly died a few years ago, but he used to make, I'm not sure that they were made of driftwood, they were wooden houses, a bit more refined than mine, I would say. He more sort of maybe one piece of wood, and he would paint them all. You'll have to Google him.
I have to look him up. Yeah.
And I think he probably inspired me a lot. But I hope that I've took things in my own direction. I don't see our work as really similar apart from the subject matter.
Yeah, and we've touched on this, and I know one of the things that you have to that you're always managing is that you've had your fair share of people who make things that are very similar, don't you?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of it online, lots of people making driftwood houses these days.
But what I love is how your fan base kind of, I always love reading the thread where people are absolutely kind of got your back, haven't they? And immediately you've got like hundreds of like Rottweiler type fans who are really leap to your defense.
Yeah, it's nice to have support. I wouldn't ever, you know, encourage any kind of pile on or anything.
No, I know, but it's really,
I get it, because I think when I see my friends and fellow makers who are having their you know, work plagiarized or whatever, it makes me so angry, more angry than when it happens to me. So I think, you know, people are just annoyed by proxy, really.
Yeah. And it's a different, you know, it's just one of the realities, I suppose, of your particular, when you're making actual objects, I suppose, as opposed to 2D stuff, it's, I don't know, maybe it's more difficult to copy if it's paintings, and it's a different thing, I suppose. When it's a made object, it's perhaps a trickier thing. So do you think that, have you noticed that people are valuing making more in recent years? Have you seen a shift in the way people think about original objects?
I think so. I'd like to think so. I think, you know, even in the recession, people think more, I don't know, I think they choose more carefully, and they like to have things with I don't know.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think that growing awareness that things that are made by hand are worth what they cost is one thing, isn't it? Because I think sometimes with mass produced stuff, it's difficult then for some people to appreciate why something, you know, how long it takes something like yours to actually, how much time it takes and how much effort. But the other thing seems to me is that I think increasingly, as we're becoming aware of more sustainability issues, the idea of having something that you spend a bit more money on, but it's has more of a story is increasingly important, I guess.
Yeah, you said it much better than I did, Kate. And I was going to say, I think I don't know if you watched the Great Pottery Throwdown, but I think that's brilliant for showing what can go wrong and the process and why, you know, things cost what they cost. And yeah, and
also the passion that craft can evoke, or that objects can evoke, because I'm sure a lot of that show's success is seeing Keith get so emotional about people's the things that people make, because it is about emotion, it is about beauty, and I love just how passionate he is about it.
Definitely.
And probably shows like that have had a big difference, haven't they? Had a big impact on well, and things like the craft festival have had the impact on people learning about process and appreciating what they're buying a bit more.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I've noticed, so I'm not in the craft world, but I'm more in the fashion and fashion history world. But what I've noticed is that even some of the big fashion houses have started doing a lot of these promotional videos which are about process and about showing how the embroiderers work, showing how the pleaters work, because I think there was this recognition that people are really interested in process. Have you ever thought about doing like a little process video, or would that be too, because I think people are just so nosy about how things work. Have you ever done one of those, like a time-lapse video about how it goes, or would that just know your secrets?
Well, it's not so much that. I'm just really rubbish with technology. I know that I should be doing, is it reels they're called, because of Instagram algorithms and all the rest of it, but I don't know how to do it. I need to go on a course or something, I think, and I'm getting left behind.
Well, that's one of the things. So you're on Instagram, and obviously you don't have a physical gallery space, or you don't sell from an actual shop front. So all of your actual selling spaces are online. How do you well, you kind of answered the question in as much as, but do you feel that pressure to kind of think, oh, I've got to maintain that kind of virtual presence because that's the way everyone's selling?
Yeah, and I never take it for granted. You know, I always think that I do know how lucky I am to be in this position where I can make pretty much what I want and it will sell. But I know that could change at the drop of a hat. So
I think I can see you having to do reels or a little video, because I think people would be totally fascinated by your process. Just whilst we're here, so would anyone, there's a question here. So this is from Christine, who says, here in America we see Kirsty's work through Etsy. Just wondering, oh yes, and she's put your Etsy shop. So do you is it only on Etsy you sell, but then you advertise it on Facebook? Is that how you?
Yeah. Just sell it on Etsy.
Is still, I mean, I suppose Etsy was the original makers platform, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was
It's
that did you start there?
I used to sell on my I think I've always sold on Etsy and Folksy, but
Yeah.
in those days I was making you probably don't even know, but I used to make textile bits and pieces.
Did you?
Yeah, kids decorations like mobiles and things, and I sold on not on the high street as well in those days, but it was always the same design.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had more than one platform, whereas now obviously I can't put the same thing on several different places.
So Christine says, just wondering if Kirsty does the photography for the cards and calendars, because that's a really interesting other part of your business as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So that's all you do all of that yourself?
Yeah.
Oh. And those sort of subsidiary things are quite. How many years have you been doing those now?
I think I probably started doing Christmas cards maybe 8 years ago. I haven't done Christmas cards for a couple of years because I think it's a bit of a dying thing. People don't tend to send so many cards. But yeah, it's a way of making it more accessible to the masses, I suppose, as well. And people buy the cards and put them in frames, which is nice. It's quite
so it's like a kind of whole other part of the taking photographs of the work itself so that people can have a little piece of it is a slightly different approach. So Dorothy has said, if you have someone film your little process, she would love to edit it for you. She does that as a professional. Would be honoured.
Okay.
I think we should make it happen, Kirsty. I think you're going to be the reels queen, or have some kind of.
Oh, the pressure.
Hates it. So what? Looking back, what would, if someone, so young makers now, I mean, what's your advice for anyone that is thinking about craft as a profession, or what do you wish someone had told you when you were coming into this game?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know what I wish someone had told me, but I would say to anyone who was starting, be original, have your own ideas, work hard, and if you want it enough, then it will happen for you. It's a very competitive world, but there's lots of other areas that are as well. So
yeah. And I think it's still the case, isn't it, that I mean, I guess now increasingly with people talking about the high street becoming perhaps a thing of the past, and that people are going to find things in different places and different spaces, and so perhaps that kind of making community and the way that people can share stuff is going to be more creative, and that's the kind of way it might be going.
I think so.
Has anyone got any other questions that whilst we're thinking about that, any other questions that anybody's got for Kirsty, that burning question that they've always wanted to ask, or anything at all? So Michael's asking, do you still enjoy meeting the public at craft fairs and events?
Yes, I do. I really love it. I only really do one show a year, and that was cancelled last year. So when it was on again in September, it was really nice to be back. And I think the it wasn't just the makers, it was the visitors as well. They all felt the same. It was just lovely to be back in that atmosphere. And it's you can't. It's
quite a unique thing, isn't it? I think that the craft festival has got a really lovely vibe, I guess, because you know people that you know lots of people there, and then that in itself is a lovely thing. But then that chance for people for you to actually meet buyers, and because that doesn't normally happen, does it? You don't normally meet customers.
No. It's lovely seeing the same old faces and meeting new people, and you know, they come from so far away, you know, and they'll come and introduce themselves, and it's lovely putting faces to names and everything. So
really nice. So Rory says, I feel very blessed. Well, I don't, so it's on Rory's name. I feel very blessed to own my very own Kirsty Elson piece. It was my 40th birthday present for my husband. And so, God, they're special, aren't they? People have so much. I think because each piece is unique, it's they are special for people, and that's a really lovely thing.
It is lovely, and I do appreciate that it's sometimes tricky to secure something. So, you know, a lot of the time people have waited for, you know, ages to get one. So hopefully,
I have a vision of you saying, right, it's going live at, you know, 8 o'clock on a Thursday or whatever, and that there are countless people just sat with their refresh, the finger on the keyboard.
It's a bit bonkers.
So Sylvia says, was it Bovey Tracy? It was Bovey, wasn't it? That's the show that you go to, and that's the one that you were at.
Yeah.
This year. How many years have you been doing Bovey for? Since the beginning? Or?
No, my first one was 2012.
Okay.
And I remember getting the letter saying that I'd been accepted, and I was jumping around the place because, you know, it's imposter syndrome. I thought I wasn't good enough to show somewhere like that. So.
And it's so great. There's such variety. But yeah, I think the opportunity for people to go and chat with you is it's obviously a very popular thing to do. So has anyone got any other questions for Kirsty about her work? Or so question here, obviously you can only make a small number of pieces per month. Has the pressure to produce impacted your creative process, or are you able to just maintain your pace and focus on the artistry?
I hope the answer is B. Do
you feel pressure sometimes?
I feel normally I'm pretty because I'm disciplined. I tend to not have to, you know, rush in the last week leading up to the sale, and I think, right, I have got enough. Anything from now on is a bonus, but I don't churn them out just for the sake of numbers.
Have you ever been the opposite, where you've had a really dry month where perhaps you haven't had the stuff, or you're like tearing your hair out? Because have you ever been in that position? Yeah,
and recently there hasn't been a lot of wood washed up.
Not enough storms.
No, and honestly, I have been quite worried about it, thinking I'm going to have to go and get a proper job or something.
Come on, Atlantic storms, we've normally had loads by now. That's really so however many people are watching this, you're suddenly going to be inundated by people going, oh God, Kirsty hasn't got enough wood to find. So is it a case that you just, what I really like, I mean, apart from the fact that we now know that your studio is a complete on-site, but do you have like little drawer? I'd really like to think that you've got little drawers, and it's like this one says washers and this one says, have you got all of that kind of thing for all the little bits and pieces, or miscellaneous? Oh, this could be this is a walnut shell drawer, and all of that kind of thing?
No, it's all mixed in. I've got one of those, it's lovely. Steve found it in a skip, one of those old wooden multi-drawer things.
Oh, nice, like from an old...
It was from the school, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I should have everything separate. Well, I have to a certain degree, but things like washers and screws and nails, they're just all mixed in various tins on my table and windowsill and floor.
I love this. I feel like we've blown the lid on Kirsty.
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
No, God, no. So why is the summer a bad time for beachcombing? I mean, obviously, you could perhaps explain a bit. I mean, Cornwall this summer was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was particularly busy this year. It's mostly because the weather, the sea doesn't, bring it in, and what does wash up is generally used for fire. People have barbecues and make fires on the beach, so yeah.
Get really resentful with people.
I see a half bit thinking that would have been brilliant.
Oh no. And for anyone that's not familiar with our geography, so that sort of Southwest Peninsula, we do get I was talking somewhere in I was in Tunbridge Wells a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic, and someone said to me, well, we don't understand why anyone would want to live in the Southwest, because all right, it's beautiful and everything, but whenever we watch the weather, there's just a big lump of blue over the top of it, and it's always raining there. So yeah, it's that Atlantic. We have that Atlantic weather all the time, don't we? And it's, I mean,
I
good
can't believe somebody said that. That's really rude.
It was rude. They didn't mean it. They were just jealous.
That's why it's so green here.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, we have all of that. There is a lot of green.
And
so
on a nice day, you wouldn't want to be anywhere else, really.
No, exactly. Mark says, do you think your style will change over time? I mean, has it evolved? Do you look at pieces that you did early on and go, oh God,
I cringe.
Oh no.
Yeah. My really early stuff was like so primitive, and it changes all the time, subtly perhaps.
Yeah.
But I can look at pictures and pretty much
tell you when it was. Yeah, so it's that very gradual evolution that I suppose, because it just happens.
And adding more details all the time, and thinking of different, the details are my favorite thing to do. So
yeah, that's the part of the storytelling, isn't it, that makes it so brilliant. We've probably got time for one or two more questions if anyone has got anything that they have been burning to ask Kirsty. Yeah, that was asking how your work has changed was one of the things that I was really interested in, because I've always been totally fascinated by those sort of the tales that you tell through your work. They're so and I think there's a strong, particularly in times of difficulty. So in the last, if you look at the last sort of 15 years or so, with the recession followed by all of those things, I think that there's that thing about nostalgia, isn't there? And that people like looking back at things or that kind of imagined, quite poignant things like that may be more appealing when. Do you think that there's that element to your work?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely the nostalgia. And, they kind of depict a time where everything was good. Yeah.
That's a nice thing. That's a nice thing to end on, the nostalgia of a Kirsty Elson piece. So that's it. Our hour is up. Thank you so much. It was lovely to chat with you. I haven't talked to you. I don't think I've ever talked to you about your work. So that was really lovely. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Hope you enjoyed our natter, and have a lovely rest of your weekend.
Thanks, everyone.